Paul Dennett, he's a cricket podcaster, broadcaster and commentator. He's also part of the fantastic Cricket Unfiltered podcast, and he joins us once again on another very big day of cricket news in Australia. G'day, Paul.
Hey, Heater, how you going?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. Thanks so much for the time once again. Today, Pat Cummins has been unveiled as the 47th Test skipper of Australia. The temptation to go back to a known quality with such a big series coming up has been overpowered by the new dawn, I guess, led by the number one ranked Test bowler in the world. Your initial reaction to the announcement?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad circumstances that it's come about in, but I think putting those to one side for a moment, it's a sort of a triumphant moment that Pat Cummins has been for so long, was for so long, potentially the one that got away for Australian cricket, that he made his debut spectacularly back in, I think it was 2011, and then he was just injured year after year after year, and all of us cricket fans were sort of thinking, if he could ever get his body right, he could be amazing. And then all of a sudden he did, and he's now strung together season after season of almost injury-free cricket. His figures are extraordinary. He's putting together a statistical package that could put him right at the top of all Australian bowlers ever. And now to have this additional Feathertees cap of being the actual captain, I think it's great. And I think that, I was probably one of these ones that agreed that maybe you shouldn't have a fast bowler as captain. And then when he was first mooted as being the captain a few years ago, I thought, why not? There's no reason not to in this day and age. They're so fit. They have so much tactical planning done off the field. And he's an intelligent, affable guy. I think it's in difficult circumstances, it's a triumphant day.
I thought Pat's adamancy about not resting was fantastic as well. He's I'm going to stay on as skip. I haven't missed any tests since I've overcome those injuries. So I think he's all set to go. You're a great historian of the game, Paul. Do you know why we can't pick a fast bowler as captain, or where that started, or where it's come from?
Well, there's a variety of reasons. We've really only had one Test match, like Ray Lindwall, a great Australian fast bowler of the 1940s and 50s, was captain, filling in. I think that there's one of the main reasons is that you tend to be regarded as captaincy material late 20s, early 30s, and until the most recent era, that was kind of when fast bowlers were all starting to retire. Also, there's the feeling that you do your main work as a captain, tactically speaking, on the field. And they used to talk about Bob Willis, the late Bob Willis, when he was captain of England. He'd bowl, and he almost got into a zombie-like state when he bowled, and suddenly he'd be standing there the next over, physically drained and in his cocoon of bowling, and needing to change the field and make bowling decisions, and it just wasn't ideal. There's also that kind of myth that fast bowlers are a bit less cerebral, shall we say, than batters, and there's the old anecdote. I think it was Jeff Thompson was asked by Greg Chappell to bowl a couple of outswingers and an inswinger. He did the opposite, and he admitted he didn't know which way to hold the ball for which. And I think that story is probably apocryphal, but that's the sort of the stereotype. I've actually just read an interesting article that probably doesn't apply so much to Australia, but in other countries, class was a factor. That in England, certainly, they used to separate the players into professionals and those who were amateurs, and only amateurs would be considered as potential captains, and most of the fast bowlers were professionals from the sort of the lower classes. So that's sort of an issue, maybe not so much in Australia, but I think it's great that we're changing it. And I was also impressed with his performance in the press conference today. I liked how when they asked him about would he like to be one-day captain, rather than giving a cliche answer, he basically said, no, I'm just going to be Test captain. I'm going to focus on that. And also they said, will you be captain for the rest of your career? And again, very searingly honest answer. He said, I'd love to play for another 7 years. It's hard to see me being captain for that whole length of time. So I thought it was a very pleasant level of candour and honesty in his answers.
Realistic as well. Steve Smith, some experience around Pat, and of course, if you look for the house from the detractors, you'll find them. But is it a sign of how far he's built back the respect since being removed from the captaincy to get back to this role?
Yeah, I think to a degree. And personally, I think that it's correct that he is considered for captaincy roles. I think that what he did in Cape Town, it was wrong and he deserved punishment. But I think more what he did was he showed weakness as a leader. He overlooked something that really needed to be stopped. I've read Greg Chappell's account of it, that he knew that Steve Smith was really struggling with the demands of the job. He'd had a massive Ashes series, and he just wasn't really the strong leader that needed to be to say, no, we're not going to do this. And he deserves criticism for that, but I think that he's paid his dues well and truly. So I think it's good that he is considered for a leadership role. And I think that it was also the smart thing to do by Cricket Australia. Keep him happy. It would have been a big snub if they moved on to, say, Marnus Labuschagne, who's probably regarded as maybe needs a couple of more years before he's ready for that. And that if Pat Cummins does need to, on a 40-degree day, seek some refuge in the middle of a spell at fine leg, then obviously Steve Smith, who's done it all before, can certainly position the field and make bowling changes if necessary.
The timing of the announcement, it still gives them over a week before the first ball of the first test is bowled. Did you expect it to be taken care of this week?
I actually thought it'd be taken care of earlier.
Okay.
They took longer than I thought they would. And then just when I was thinking, they've now created this new panel, this could be even longer, they've now got to it much more quickly. So, and I think that the way that Cummins spoke about the optimism in the group, I think that they're raring to go. And he made that point that we're not going to forget the fact that we just, was it 10 days ago, won a T20 World Cup. And I think that's important. Obviously, the personnel is slightly different, but I do like the stories of Mitch Marsh walking around with his medal around his neck and referring to himself as the Norm Smith and that sort of thing. I like that, and I think that it's good that you don't want to win a tournament like that and have it sort of forgotten about quickly. So I think they're in pretty good spirits.
Does it give them some time for some calm and to settle a little bit as a group before the first test because of all the reaction around what's been going on the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think so, but I think that they probably don't need that much. I think that these elite athletes, especially cricketers, are very good at compartmentalising. I think there's a real feeling of sympathy for Tim Paine, and I think you wouldn't be human if you didn't feel it, no matter where people's viewpoint on the what he did was, whether it's very, very bad in terms of if it wasn't consensual or if it was that it was just unseemly. No matter where you stand on that, the fact that he's now gone from a week ago being Australian captain to now not Australian captain and on the face of it out of the side and probably never to play international cricket again, you'd have to feel great sympathy for him. I think the players all feel that, but they're all used to that whole notion of the minute the bowler lets the ball go as a batter, you focus on the ball to the exclusion of all else. And I think they're pretty good at that in their general lives as well, just focusing on the job at hand.
With Tim Paine taking that leave, it has moved on to who's next in line to be the keeper around Alex Carey or Josh Inglis to take up the gloves. We're more used to seeing both in action in white ball cricket, which does excite me as an option for the next keeper batter in the test side, having that explosive dimension. Which way are you leaning between the two?
I think I probably would pick Carey, and I think that's the way that they're going to go as well, although in our podcast today, my co-host Menas was saying that I think it might have been on SEN, Ian Healy talking about the rumour around that maybe that Inglis has got some backers. So I think either way, they'll do a good job. The reason I would pick Carey is that I find it very hard to line them up in terms of their glove work. I think it's very hard to pick who's better in that regard. But although their first-class batting averages are roughly the same, sort of in that 34 region, Carey in the last couple of years, not this season, he hasn't batted so well this season, but the last couple of years he's averaged much more than that. So I think on that I'd say that maybe he's, if you say him at his very best, might be still a better batter than Inglis at his very best. And Carey's played some test match style innings in the 2019 World Cup. Remember the game that we ended up losing to England, the semi-finals. Steve Smith and Carey kind of rescued the side, and it was almost those are the only two that were really able to handle that difficult wicket. So that's kind of, in addition to the fact that he can score quickly as well, that's a good sign to test for a potential test player.
Would you expect, once the decision is made, that their selectors will stick with either Carey or Inglis for the whole series, or would it have to take something quite drastic for them to make a change through that 5-test series?
I think it would have to take either an injury or something pretty drastic. That's the thing with being a wicketkeeper, that when you're in the side, it's fantastic because it is hard to dislodge because, as I said, it's very hard to line up how good one keeper is relative to the other. And there's examples of it with Gilly himself going across couldn't get a gig in the New South Wales side, went across to Perth, eventually displaced Tim Zura and eventually displaced Ian Healy, but it took a long time for one of the greatest cricketers of all time to force his way into the Australian side. So I think if either of them were picked, they would need to be dropping catches, scoring no runs, and Australia losing for the other one to then take their place.
One of the other points of interest for the makeup of the 11 is possibly the Jai Richardson or Mitch Stark selection. Jai Richardson with hauls of 8 and 7 across his past 2 Sheffield Shield matches for WA. I'm a parochial sandgroper, so of course I want him in. I believe he's adding a lot with the bat now as well. Are you expecting Mitch Stark to still get the nod for the first test?
It's a 50-50 call, and I'm a New South Welshman, but I like to think that I'm unbiased. But I agree with you. I pick Richardson, I think that both of them will play a part in the series. They are talking, with the exception of Pat Cummins, of rotation. I just think the form he is in is just irresistible, and his record, albeit he's had only a fairly short first-class career in terms of injuries have come in. He's only taken about 80 or so wickets, but he's taken them at an average that is in the very low 20s. And I just think you can't ignore that sort of bowling. And I was actually at the Wacker when he won the man of the match in the Big Bash a few years ago when he bowled the Scorchers to victory. And even then, at that young age, you could just see, gosh, this guy looks impressive. So, if I was an England batter, I wouldn't want either of them, but I think I'd probably fear Richardson even more.
The South Australia versus Queensland Sheffield Shield match had a lot of interesting things going on. We'll start with the pitch. There was a bit of a damp spot, which saw that Marnus Labuschagne had worn a couple, but after the pitch staff got on top of it, he makes 100 the next day, and Chad Sayers, the former South Australian paceman, came out and had his say. There was a lot of feeling around the place around this match.
Yes, I saw that tweet. And look, I have some sympathy for where Sayers is coming from, but and his point was, bowlers don't get to walk off when it's a road, and I think that speaks to a wider point in Australian and world cricket that pitches are too batter friendly, and you tend to get the best red ball cricket when the pitches are slightly in favour of the bowlers. And I think that hopefully for this Ashes series, that if we can have that, then we're going to be in for a cracking series. If we have an MCG-like pitch where they had last time around when England were out here and Alistair Cook got a double century, it drives everyone to sleep. But I think that where I don't have so much sympathy is for Sayers' point is I think this pitch was genuinely a bit dangerous. And there's a wet patch in the middle, the last thing any Australian fan wants is for Marnus Labuschagne to suddenly have a broken finger and be out for the Ashes, or to get injured more seriously. I mean, it is courage is required to face these bowlers, and I think you're entitled to expect that. Sure, the pitch might move about a bit, but a damp patch in the middle of it, I think they did the right thing in suspending play on day one.
In your mind, who took the points in the Khawaja versus Head bat off, which isn't a bat off?
Well, I suppose you'd have to say it was Head. That century that he scored in a match where Labuschagne scoring a century, he's one of the greatest batsmen in the world. Not all that many other players were getting many runs. South Australia got rolled for 100 odd in the first inning. So for Head to get 100, he got it at a pretty quick rate as well. I think he only faced about 150 balls. Yep. That's very impressive, because some of the criticisms had been that he'd scored some of the earlier runs on sort of, ironically, I think it was the same pitch, the Karen Rolton Highway they were calling it, but they're no longer calling it that after this game. Then Khawaja, didn't get much of a chance, but what did he get, 52 not out at 36 balls with about 10 fours. That's a pretty emphatic statement, but probably Head gets the victory on points there, and I think, again, without being certain, I think they might be leaning towards Head for the number 5 spot.
On Saturday, the WBBL 7 final, the Perth Scorchers taking on the Adelaide Strikers from Optus Stadium. I'm obviously on the Scorchers. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I think I'd probably narrowly favour them. Not by much, but I think with at their home ground, that's going to be, you'd give them the slight edge. It's going to be very interesting. Beth Mooney and Sophie Devine have been absolutely irresistible at the top of the order for them. And the Adelaide Strikers bowlers have been fantastic. So that could be a really interesting clash. Megan Shute and Darcy Brown have been in good form, and Amanda Jade Wellington taking 5 for 8 in their second last game, the Strikers. So it could be a really fascinating game, and I'm really looking forward to watching it.
And just finally, before we let you go, Paul, India versus New Zealand in some test match action. India posting 345 in their first dig. Shreyas Iyer with a fantastic ton. And New Zealand making a great fist of their first innings up till this point. Just great tense test match cricket, which is whetting the appetite for the Ashes.
Certainly is. And I'm impressed with how New Zealand are going, because you just sort of expect that when India bat first in India, that they don't make 350 odd, they make 550 odd. And so that was an impressive job by New Zealand to restrict them to that, albeit several players have been rested, Kohli and Rohit Sharma and Bumrah and Mohammad Shami. On SENZ, Ian Smith wasn't very happy about that, and I can kind of agree with him that I can see where the Indians are coming from, that they need to rest these players because they have been playing back-to-back cricket. But to rest players from test matches, aside from when bowlers have had a large workload in previous test matches and have got test matches coming up, it's not something that sits well with me for the future of test match cricket. But yeah, Shreyas Iyer, century on debut. He's lit up the IPL over the last few years. And I was looking back, New Zealand have never won a test series in India. In fact, they've only ever won two lone test matches in India in the entire time that they've been playing there. So it's too early to say, but they've made a very good start, and let's see what they can do on day 3.
Yeah, there was a decision. I think it was Latham that was given out, and he's reviewed that, and that's been given not out. So still with no wickets down to this point, but it's just been fantastic to see some tense Test match cricket again after we've had, it was fun having the World Cup T20 Carnival of the way, and also the IPL before that. But give me back the 5 days of just gripping sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean West Indies and Sri Lanka had a game the other day where day 4. The West Indies came out really playing for a draw, and there was a lot of rain around in Galle, so hoping that they could get to stumps unscathed and then some rain might save them on day 5. And before they knew it, they were 6 for 18, which is the worst 6-down score the West Indies have ever had. And from that point, you would have given them no chance, but they managed to somehow limp to stumps without losing another wicket. And on day 5, they got to lunch with only losing 1 wicket. After lunch, I was reading the updates on Cricket Info. The rain clouds were coming in. Sri Lanka dropped the key catch, and they were starting to panic. They ended up getting the final 3 wickets and coming away with the win. But again, sort of for all the glory and fun of T20 and 50-over cricket, there is something pretty special about Test matches.
And it's always great to see Rakeem Cornwell back out playing as well for the West Indies. I love his work.
Definitely, yeah, the big man.
The podcasts are the award-nominated Cricket Daily and the fantastic Cricket Unfiltered. Paul, I really thank you for the time on the Overnight Crowd.
Good on you, Heater.
Paul Dennett from the award-nominated Cricket Daily and also the fantastic Cricket Unfiltered.